I'm back here with a look at Bitcoin. Could this low be in down here? All right, down here at about 60,000 bucks. Let's mark that off real quick. A big move's coming for sure. All right, you got a wedge starting over here. Let's put this line on here. All right, this is coming back and retesting this top over here in 2021. All right, all the technicals point to this being a top. Look at the RSIs here. You have your top down here at the bottom. Look at this down here. Right? You have this top coming in down here on the RSI. You can see the bearish divergence there. This high right here. And you had a lower high, which was getting towards the top, lower high. And you had your top, and then a lower high. Then you got your big bearish divergence, big pullback. All right, but all the technicals pointed to this. I know this pushed higher, but if you look at everything, you guys out there know your technicals, pointed to it right here. All right, came back and retested it. All right, now if we come over here to 2017, where was our bottom? Right here. All right, came back and retested the top over here also. All right, right in that area. So will this hold? We'll see. Right, okay. The weekly RSI turning up. Okay, it's bullish. Your monthly RSI, the relative strength index. Okay, you got it down at the bottom here. Look at this here. You have this low over here, or this high over here, 2017. All right, let's pull this up a little bit bigger, so you can see it a little bit better. All right, look at this. This high. And the next high, a higher low on the RSI than this one. Then you got this top, lower high on the RSI. So you got this high, a higher high, and a higher high. This high, a lower high, and a lower high. Now it's coming down here. Pretty crazy. Does this match up? No. A lot of people, I know a lot of people are looking for that too. Maybe that's it would come up and hit this trend line on these tops, but it never did that. Maybe the next run does that, right? Maybe it ends up coming up and touching that trend line. Usually you get touches like that, with trend lines. Where am I at here? Right here. Maybe something. Maybe it marches up here next time and hits that trend line right there. Comes back down off of it, we get a higher high. Who knows? We'll see what happens, right? And also along the bottom, you got this low here, a lower low, then you got a higher low coming in. All right. If you let's take a trend line on this. Right from here down through there like that. You guys that know your trend lines know usually the price will pull to them, right? I mean, that's what price normally will pull to, is this, sorry about that, is to your trend line. So I'm curious here, could it pull down to this trend line? I guess it could, and if you put a fib on this, right here, let's look at 2021, this was your bottom here. It ran up, pulled back right to a 786. And then marched back up to the upside. Actually, should pull this over here. That's your there. Came right down to that 786. That is a beautiful spot to get in. A 786 pullback, and XRP is right on a 786 now. Pulled down to a 786. Just to see that thing go lower would be crazy. And here we got Bitcoin. Usually you hit a 618 or 702, something like that. Boy, oh boy, it's right in that range, right? Getting pretty close to it, but it has not touched it yet. The 618 or 702. All right, so could it pull down deeper? It could. Yeah, it could. This breaks down. I'm trying to get it on there as best I can. There we go. I'll leave it right there. You know, if we zoom in a little bit closer here, let's go in on a daily. All right, you can see this wedge. Look at that wedge in price starting up here. Now, if this thing, you know, comes back up, I've talked about 70, 74, 75,000. That's this top over here. Okay, that's the area that's going to be interesting here. You know, if it makes it back up there. We'll see. You know, it's forming some Elliott waves in here, which are looking pretty decent, right? Over here you have an ABC, and then it looks like a 1, 2, 3 wave, maybe a 4 wave pullback, and then a 5th wave attempt to break this trend line. Hasn't hit it yet. All right, you come back up through here, you have a touch here, you have a touch up here. This thing's on here perfectly. Price tends to draw you know, towards them trend lines, right? You're going to get a big move soon, for sure. You know, there's not much room left in here. Daily RSI's at the top. It does a pull back down here towards, you know, right down in this area, 69 area, and then shoot up through. We'll see. If I put a fib on here now, let's see where we're at. Right in that area. 618702, right? You hit that area. Let's get that off there. That tends to be a real tell of what's going to happen. You break through the 618702. It's your white line and your blue line right here. Look how it hit the 702 and got rejected right off of it. You break through that area, there's a good chance that you're heading higher. That's usually your target, your 1618. If you don't know how to use this stuff, guys, check out a level 3 membership. It's only $15. Gets you 10 hours of videos to watch, and it gets you a link to our Discord, where we're in there trading all the time. And I've been in there all day today with everybody. You'll love it. And if you're not interested in that, if you feel like buying me a coffee, there's a link in the description of the video. I appreciate it. Don't make much off these. Really, I just enjoy doing them. I love the Discord over there. I have a really good time over there with everybody trading. You know, we have some really, really good traders in there. It's definitely worth checking out. Now, what Bitcoin needs to do is break through the 72.7. Okay, that would be a big step for this thing. And this trend line is up here close to 74,000. Break 74,000 and you could get a pretty decent run here out of Bitcoin, and you know, you start heading up towards the 80s then, and you know, we'll see what happens. All right, now if it comes down here and hits that trend line and breaks through, where's it going? Well, let's take a measurement. These measurements work, guys. I'm telling you, this Fibonacci tool is like a cheat code almost, right? But 50,000, that would put us down right at a 702. We come out on a monthly. Let's take a look. There's your target right there, the 1618. 50,000. That would pull it down towards the 702. Very, very possible, no doubt. You know, it could. This low has held right around 60. You know, I think that there's a good chance. You know, that could be a bottom. Does it come down here and do an ABC? You know, something like this. A makes a run back up. You know, B, and then pulls down deeper. That's possible too. You know, it could. You know, say it does. Let's see what kind of target that would give it. You know, say Bitcoin runs back up to a 618 or 702, which is right up here. Okay, just say we're just saying for instance, right? I'm not saying that's what it's going to do, but if it did run up there, you'd have an AB. Let's pull this down on top. That would pull Bitcoin down to $39,000. ABC. Wow, that would be a hell of a dump. Could you imagine though? You get this run started back up, a lot of people jumping back in the market, and then a big pull down like that. That would be crazy. You know, I think if it's going to do it, it's going to do it soon. I don't think no ABC's coming in here. You know, we'll see what happens here. It's almost hit that 618, right? Almost. almost down there. You know, this thing was, pull it down just a hair more. You know, it's within a couple $1,000 of hitting that. It doesn't come down here and, you know, make a quick wick down through and then push up. Maybe it's very possible too. You know, you got your monthly relative strength index right on the bottom. You know, that's when the price tends to push up. Your weekly heading to the upside, still bullish, 48 and 42. Look at the bottom down here. Look how low that thing is down there. Right down there, pretty low, right? And looking for a possible run. Your daily, right at the very top. Okay, so we'll see what happens. All right, if it makes a run up here and breaks through 74, if it breaks 74, look out. You know, this thing's gonna really start tearing. If it comes down here and takes out, you know, roughly 66,000, starts taking that area out, then look out. You know, more than likely heading down towards 50. All right, but you do have an ABC in here. Looks like a 1, 2, possible 3 wave, maybe a 4 wave back, and a 5th wave attempt to break this. Maybe we'll see what happens, guys. I'm looking. I'm hoping and looking for some upside here. You know, just to get a relief rally here would be nice. We haven't had much, right? I mean, this move here ended up being like 27%, I believe. Take a measurement off that, pull it up. Yeah, 27%. This one here was about 20%. Them are decent bounces, you know, but I'd like to see a decent run here. You know, 40, 50% move. You know, out of Bitcoin and get some people excited and get them in the market here. It's going to be interesting. You know, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves down. You got a lot of people calling for downside. All right, doesn't make a push up. I know the trend line's off here now. When you go on different time frames, you got to readjust it. You guys out there chart know that. You know, every time frame you pick, you got to readjust your trend. But if it comes up here and breaks this thing, you know, look for Bitcoin to make a decent run here. You know, is this what's starting right here? You know, 1, 2, 3 up through here, 4, 5. I don't know. You know, it's you know, but this over here was starting to look like that too, right? 1, 2, but then the bottom fell out, straight down. You know, let's take a measurement. Let's fib off this, right? When this broke, the fib gave us a target. Pull that up there. 70,000. Look where it stopped. And look where that red candle stopped and closed right on the 70,159. You know, and this is a weekly candle. All right. So if you come in on a daily, let's take a look and see. All right, it came down, it closed there, but then ended up marching a little bit deeper here, right? But this thing is normally pretty dang accurate, right? This one here, let's take a measurement of this wave here. It gave a target down towards 95, stopped 98 here, you know. But I'm telling you, it really works. You get in here and start using this fib, you'll see what I mean. It's a great tool. You know, take a measurement off of there. You know, it definitely works, guys. No doubt about it. I've used this thing every day. I use it looking for targets all the time. It's a great tool. And as far as pullbacks, you know, on big time frames and stuff, the thing is deadly accurate. It really is. Even the trend-based fib, it works pretty well. You know, let's break it out once. I've never done this with it. So let's see here. This big run here, right? So there, and the pullback. Yeah, well, not too bad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This first set of waves right here, pretty close, right? 3, 6, 1, 8. Not too bad. You know, and this one here. be this wave right here. It started up to the top, back to the bottom. Another 3618. You know, 3618 tends to be pretty decent target wise. You know, so you can get a pretty good idea with the trend-based fib and a regular fib. So keep an eye on stuff here. When this breaks down, it takes out 60,000. Look for 50. Right? It breaks through here, 74. You know, start watching it. It might make a pretty decent run here, and we'll see what happens. But anyway, a move is coming for sure soon. Please hit that like and subscribe, guys. Consider buying me coffee or joining up for that level 3. Love you. Talk to you soon.